Theirs are the first voices we hear when we call 911, but state lawmakers say Colorado has failed dispatchers when it comes to getting them help after what they hear on the other end of the line. Anusha Roy takes a look at a proposed bill in the works that could try to close this gap.
State lawmakers say they are building on their previous work to fill the gaps when it comes to mental health help. And one group they are worried about are 911 dispatchers.
So it's trying to justify that 911 operators who are taking incidents over the phone and sometimes the first responders waiting for the police or emergency services to report, that they could have some traumatic experiences and whether that should be covered under workers' comp for some PTSD.
To fully understand this, you need to go back a few years. State law changed 2 years ago, allowing police officers and firefighters to apply for workers' comp for PTSD from the job, along with accessing other resources for help. Lawmakers struck a compromise with opponents by saying they had to see something traumatic to be eligible to apply.
This is an issue I've worked on for almost my entire career now.
Now Democratic Representative Jonathan Singer wants to expand that, especially for 911 dispatchers, and hopes to adjust the rules so if someone hears something traumatic, they can apply for workers' comp as well.
They're hearing murders being committed, suicides being completed.
No one disagrees that people who help protect us deserve help in return. The issue is how that's being done.
This is a discussion that has happened many times before.
Kevin Baumer with the Colorado Municipal League said his concern is getting people help quickly enough.
The work comp system doesn't work that fast, and we all acknowledge that we need to help our public safety officials that are helping people. The thing with PTSD is it has to happen sooner rather than later.
Baumer said the program he has more faith in is a grant program started in 2017 that is designed to help law enforcement, particularly in rural Colorado, access mental health help faster. That grant program was also passed by state lawmakers. So part of the discussion at the Capitol is if that program should ultimately be expanded. The bill still has to be approved by the Legislative Council. That could happen as early as next month. And if that happens, then, Steve, it could be introduced in the session that's coming up in January. So it still has a couple of hurdles that it needs to pass and debated before the official debate next year.
These are big changes. Why did it take so long to get to this point where we're starting to change things?
Sure. So the state senators, when I asked them that earlier today, said before the philosophy was that trauma was just an expected part of the job, and then they realized that that wasn't really the right approach, and so they started trying to change the rules around it. But that only started happening in 2017.
Wow. Well, it's good they're getting the help that they need, or at least we're talking about
working towards it. Yeah.
Anusha Roy, thank you. 3 federal judges today stopped a Trump administration rule impacting how immigrants gain legal status. The so-called public charge rule would have denied legal residency to people who are likely to depend on public assistance like food stamps and Medicaid. Consequently, the acting director of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, Ken Cuccinelli, was in our studio this morning talking about public charge. I asked him about the court challenge.
I will say you can't really measure on court challenges. Everything we do, we get sued over. It's become a part of the how policy is implemented. It's run through the filter of the court. So it's not really a measure of the policy. Everything this administration has done has been within the boundaries of the law, and you've seen that as court cases go up. Once they get high enough up the court chain, the president wins these things.
Now, Cuccinelli released a statement about the injunctions after he left our studio. It says in part, an objective judiciary will see that this rule lies squarely within long-held existing law. You can see my full 20-minute conversation with him on the Next YouTube channel. If you were watching Next yesterday, you saw Anusha's tense interaction with Senator Cory Gardner. He refused to say whether it was appropriate for a president to ask foreign leaders to investigate his political rivals. In the middle of all that, the conversation briefly pivoted. Gardner has positioned himself as a leader on foreign policy, and he talked about how he disagrees with the president when it comes to pulling troops out of supporting roles in Syria.
Well, it is very concerning what has happened in Syria, this decision to abandon the Kurds. Look, this is a group that has stood by the United States, has stood up with the United States for our interests alongside of our men and women in uniform. I think this is a mistake. I think it's a bad decision, and I hope that it's reversed.
Turkey invaded northeastern Syria just days after the White House pulled U.S. troops away. The United Nations says an estimated 100,000 people have been displaced in the 3 days since the military offensive began. The race to unseat Senator Gardner got a little less crowded today. Democrat Alice Madden suspended her campaign, citing recent changes in the primary field, which have forced her to reevaluate whether she has a realistic path to victory. We invited her to join us this afternoon. Here's a portion of that discussion.
When I first got in, I analyzed whether I had a real path to victory. And with John Hickenlooper getting in, the ground shifted under my feet. And I had hoped to get endorsements from groups like environmental groups, unions, teachers unions perhaps, progressive women, et cetera. And a lot of those groups I think are now sitting back and waiting. And the longer this goes, I think the more momentum someone like John gets.
Would you be willing to put your support behind anyone?
You know, not at this point in time. I'm happy they're all in the race. I've loved getting to know them, and their voices are important to hear.
Did John Hickenlooper getting into this race do a disservice to the race, do you think?
No. I mean, you decide to run for very personal reasons. Everyone has a right to run. It's not too late if you want to get in.
I think I'm good here for now. But,
so yeah. I would never say that to anybody. You know, and democracy should be open.
What's next for you?
So I'm not quite sure. I was at the University of Colorado Law School. I took a leave of absence. I could go back there in January, but I'm not quite sure. I'm right today, I'm just going to go out to dinner with my husband and my son and his girlfriend and relax and hopefully take a long hike tomorrow and get myself healthy and then regroup.
Madden's departure follows several others since former Governor John Hickenlooper entered this race. Former State Senator Mike Johnston was the first to drop out. Former U.S. Attorney John Walsh was the second to go, followed by former diplomat Dan Baer. So far, former Colorado House Speaker Andrew Romanoff has refused to exit the race. We've interviewed Johnston, Baer, and Romanoff since Hickenlooper joined the race. We've posted those interviews along with our full conversation with Madden on the next YouTube channel. It was a day of campaign suspensions. Former Colorado House Speaker Crisanta Duran today ended her effort to become a U.S. Congresswoman. She dropped her Democratic primary challenge against longtime U.S. Congresswoman Diana DeGette in Colorado's 1st Congressional District, which includes Denver. In a statement released late this morning, Duran says she can be more effective in pursuing transformational change through other means. Duran announced her candidacy in late February, saying it's time for a change. DeGette has been in Congress since the 90s and is seeking her 13th term. Duran says she plans to donate some of her leftover campaign contributions to the Colorado Coalition Against Sexual Assault. Our next question comes from a viewer named Gregory. He'd like to know why we record our official weather measurements at the airport and wonders if weather conditions at DIA truly reflect conditions all across Denver. So that's a fair question, Gregory, and after yesterday's show, this could be a topic a lot of viewers would like to explore. So DIA recorded about an inch of snow, while more densely populated areas of the city saw much more. So we asked meteorologist Kylie Burse to explain.
We get this question all the time. It doesn't seem like it makes sense since no one lives at the airport, or in our case, really anywhere near it. First, though, it's not just Denver. Just about every major city uses the airport for official data keeping. The reason comes down to cost and convenience. The FAA requires large airports to take weather observations for safety, when it comes to planes taking off and landing. So that makes sense. They have these very high-tech weather stations called Automated Surface Observation Systems, or ASOS. Since the weather station is already paid for and observations are already being taken, the National Weather Service will use those for official observations. Now, there are some smaller weather stations. You can kind of see them across the Front Range. We call these National Weather Service co-op sites, where private citizens will give daily information. But as far as the official records, that is kept out at DIA.
Is there something else you'd like us to investigate? A question we should try to answer potentially? Send your suggestions to next@9news.com or get our attention with the hashtag #HeyNext. A group raising money for a Denver charity had to have known we'd share this.
Guys, don't get too excited to look over there, but that guy in the lobby is Kyle Clark.
A support group protected at least one tree during the season's first snowfall. And we end each week with the same question.
It's Friday afternoon, and what are the good stories this week in this town with these people?
Happy Friday. I hope you enjoyed all that sunshine today. We all survived the snowstorm, and the views, they still were pretty magical. Kevin up there around the Aspen area capturing the maroon bells, the golden leaves, the snow out there on the peaks, and then bright blue skies in the far off distance. I love it. The storm system was a fast mover. It now is impacting parts of the upper Midwest, still spitting some snow across the Dakotas up into Canada, but pretty quiet here around Colorado. We'll stay quiet through the weekend too. Tonight, temperatures falling to about 23, winds quiet, and once again we'll be monitoring that hard freeze. Overnight lows bottom into the single digits tonight, overnight early this morning, so they should be warming up a bit for us overnight tonight in comparison. High pressure is around. It keeps us fairly mild for the weekend. Daytime highs tomorrow will be fairly seasonal in the mid-60s. 60s across the plains with 40s and 50s going up in the mountains. Then we climb into the 70s on Sunday and Monday. A quick little dip on Tuesday, and then, Steve, as we head toward the end of next week, wow, back to the mid-70s we go.
I think I picked the right week off.
Yes.
That seems right.
You certainly did.
That's next week. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, Danielle. Few things can get a community talking quite like a possible development. In Westminster, a rumor about an open space possibly being developed off 84th and Federal Boulevard has folks rattled. 9 News reporter Sonia Gutierrez grew up in that area, and we sent her to figure it all out.
If you're from Westminster, you know. Every 4th of July, 84th and Feds is the spot to watch fireworks. You also know there could come a day when you may have to buy a house to be able to watch fireworks here.
Sad. I think it's unnecessary.
These 230 acres of open space farmland may soon become the uplands. Homes, parks, offices, and possible retail, according to the development team.
I don't want it there.
Not Jackie Nye, a resident to 14 years.
I'm not in favor of that.
Not John Palmer, who's lived here all his life.
Not much open space left in the city. We're becoming landlocked.
And not the more than 3,000 people who have signed the petition hoping to stop this.
There's enough development. They need more open space.
Folks on the petition say enough is enough. Traffic is already bad.
No, the traffic would be unreal. And it's not that big of an area to do a whole neighborhood.
Unfortunately for all of them, city officials tell us this spot is already sold. A preliminary development plan has been submitted and the process is already up and running. It's just the first step in a long process.
They'll all be gone in 5 to 10 years, and we're stuck to deal with what's left, the mess, good, bad, or indifferent.
But don't worry, Jackie, John, and the other 3,000 people who don't like this idea, you will have an opportunity to tell them your thoughts about this change every step along the way.
Get involved before it's too late, and then you're appalled at what's happened without any input or say-so.
For Next, I'm Sonia Gutierrez.
Real estate experts at Metro State say it's common for developers to draw up plans early. They want to make sure the city will allow those plans. So the city says the best opportunity for you to voice your opinion about this development will come during public hearings, during planning commission and city council meetings.
Okay, it's not just me who gets to substitute for Kyle Clark.
Oh, hello, sir. Kyle Clark here. Kyle Clark, Evening News.
And we found some of your good news downtown.
Having good friends you can travel with and do stuff with. It's
feel
nice.
safe with.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's good.
The most Colorado thing we saw today showcases the ingenuity we often see here, especially when it comes to protecting our natural assets. In this case, the asset is a tree that adorns the front yard of a home in Highlands Ranch. With the first snowfall of the season this week, several trees have suffered. This homeowner took some action, leading a lot of extra support there. So it appears to have worked. Next viewer, Jean Waring, sent us this photo. Send your most Colorado pictures to next@9news.com or get our attention with the hashtag HeyNext. As you know, Kyle has Fridays off during football season. He works Sundays instead. But we all know it is Kyle's name that people recognize the most. And not just his name, but also his style.
Guys, don't get too excited to look over there, but that guy in the lobby is Kyle Clark.
Dude, I'm pretty sure that's just some guy in a janky old sports coat over there tweeting on his phone.
That's Kyle Clark.
Guys, we just got to get our stuff together because this is huge. It's important. Can somebody dust that plant? And I don't know if you always breathe like that, but just keep it down. Don't stare at him. It's right there.
Are we sure that's Kyle Clark?
I mean, I'm 110 pounds, and I'm sure on the camera I look a little heavier than that.
Oh, hello, sir. Kyle Clark here. Kyle Clark, Evening News.
I love Kyle Clark. I love how he calls people out on Next with Kyle Clark.
I'm so glad you're here. Of course, it's not about me. It's about OurName.com. This is Joyce Neufeld, the executive director of the Community Ministry of Southwest Denver. Yeah.
Do you need to tell her?
Where are your cameras anyway?
I really just want to help with their printer and copying needs. I have a 2-for-1 deal on cyan toner and paste. Paste is really popular.
Cyan toner. Funny and charming. He is how Kyle describes this video from the folks over at Name.com. They created it to raise money for the Community Ministry of Southwest Denver, which provides food, clothes, school supplies, and gifts to thousands of families in need. They need $800,000 to stay in Denver's College View neighborhood. Well, your good news and some feedback is next. We end this week, as we do every week, with your good news. In other words, the headlines of your life. This Friday, we sent our Corky Shoal downtown, the day after Denver's first snowfall of the season.
It's Friday afternoon, and what are the good stories this week in this town with these people? Let's let everybody know so that they can feel better about who they are and where is their trip taking them.
My great news is that it just snowed yesterday here in Colorado. We're all mountain-loving people in this state, and I'm really amped for this snow season.
The good news is we brought more than 1,000 preservationists to Denver, Colorado, to our annual National Preservation Conference, which is called Past Forward.
Our good news is that we are traveling here for the week and just spending time in downtown Denver.
The good news today is that I'm here talking to you because 12 years ago, it didn't look like I was going to be talking to you. I actually did an interview at that time, not looking very good. Of course, the hair was all gone. I was just starting my career with cancer. But now is a new life. Now is a new opportunity. I am not a cancer victim. I'm a cancer conqueror. But now my focus is completely different. My focus now is what is it that I can do to give back, to let the people know that there is a plan for them. And if they will listen, they'll hear what that plan is, each step at a time. And if they will obey what that plan is, life will be challenging, but life will be good, and the road will be worthwhile.
An important message about embracing that plan. My friend Mary, who is the director of the Rocky Mountain Honor Flight, wrote in to say, my good news, Mary has cancer, is that her surgery is scheduled. That is awfully good news, and we wish Mary the best as she moves along. We did get a comment from Mark who says, up here in Fort Collins, public input means you can change the shade of lipstick of the pig and that the city and the developers have already settled on. Is Westminster any different? It's a case study. You never know unless you go to the meetings and you voice your opinion. We'll see you next time.